This is a extra presentation demo talking about 3D pre-visualization or Previz, which is very similar to what you will be doing with your 3D setup and design. When I worked on the Disney film The Wild, I was in a department called Previz. And what that was Previz was a part of pre-production where we took the storyboards and we basically roughly animated the film in Maya in 3D to sort of block out and do rough performances and camera angles and things like that. So basically we animated the whole film in a very rough and quick way. If you look on the left here, that is the previs that I did for The Wild, and over here on this side, I'm going to skip up a little bit, you can see the final film, the way it turned out. You look over at the previs, it's very rough, it's very low poly models, the animation is not refined or anything like that, but it does get the point across. Doing previs I found to be very fun. I was like kind of directing my own scenes. I was given a lot of freedom to compose the shots, do some composition and do some performance, so I found it to be kind of a fun thing to do. What you will be doing is very similar to Previz. You're going to be setting up your environments and your characters in a very rough form to get the general idea across. So I've set up something here which is what I call the outer spacescape, the outer space scene. It's the alien planet scene, and I've done just a very rough little thing. This took me just a few minutes to do, and I made some rough characters. I call this blue spaceman and red spaceman. They're contrasting characters on an alien planet here. And for the background I did something very very simple, just a plane with a downloadable image here that I will change, of course, later on with my own painted image. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to set up a camera. So I'm going to go create camera and just create just a regular camera, and the camera comes in here. Let's go into the perspective view and take a look here. There's the camera, and I'm going to move it into position here. I can also scale it down. Scaling the camera object doesn't change the image that is going to come up. It just scales the camera, this little camera shape here, to the scale of the scene, so it can you can work with it a lot better. As you can see, we're not seeing through the camera. We don't have a camera view set up. So I'm going to take this view over here, and I'm going to make that my camera view, and I'm going to go to Panels Perspective and just set that to camera. And this is what the camera sees. And if you look here, if I move the camera here in the perspective view, it moves here in the camera view. I can also alt and navigate with my mouse as well and set up the camera that way. One thing you want to check is you want to check your aspect ratio of your camera. This is what is going to be rendered, the size of the image that is going to be rendered. So if you go to Window, Rendering Editors, and Render Settings, it's going to bring you to this window here, and you scroll down to make sure that your renderable camera is going to be camera 1, which is the camera we just brought in. You can rename that camera. And over here in image size, there's going to be, it'll probably come in default 640 by 480, which is kind of small. That's good for like YouTube videos or whatnot. But you want to render something to industry standard, and the standard right now for just a regular 133 is going to be, you want to put that to custom and change it to 740 by 540, and that will give you, that'll be in pixels, and that'll give you the proper aspect ratio and resolution, pixels per inch. So we're going to go into we have the camera selected. We're going to go into that camera view, go to camera settings, and we're going to go pull off this window here. And there's a few things we can do. We can go to film gate, and what film gate shows is the resolution here. We can also go to resolution gate. This is the one that I like to use, and this shows you what is going to be renderable. Everything outside that resolution is not going to be renderable. We also can check gate mask or not have gate mask, depending on what you prefer there. You can also have field chart if that is useful. You can also show safe action. Safe action gives you an inner frame which you can use to make sure that your characters are not moving too close to the edge of frame and breaking the frame. You also have title safe, which is if you're going to have titles, you want to keep it within that box there. There's also film origin and film pivot, which shows the center. Film pivot is where the camera pivots from. Also, there's some other things here. You can fill the view in with the resolution gate, or you can have it in vertical or overscan. I sometimes like using overscan or fill. Those are the two ones that I toggle back and forth from. And this is going to give you what is the renderable view of your camera, and then you can use this to compose your shot. If we were to click in this and do a little test render here, you will see that that is what is going to render what you see in this resolution gate there. One other setting that I like to use when I like to play with the cameras is make sure that I have the camera selected. And if you don't have the camera selected, if you don't know, you can go into the view. You can make that view active, go to view, select camera, and that will select the camera. It will also do the same thing. It will select your perspective camera in this view here, but we want to select the renderable camera, and we go view, select camera. As you can see, we have kind of an ordinary view here. The set looks like what it is, a kind of a small set. You can see here that it's just sort of it's a diorama setup that I have made here, and there's some things you can do to make this view more dynamic. And what I'm going to do here is, with the camera selected, I'm going to go into the camera shape history here, and there are a couple of settings that you can play with. The one I'm most interested in is focal length. Your camera will default to focal length of 35. Focal length is like the lens of the camera that you put on. If you have a regular camera, you know you have a regular lens, you have a telephoto lens, you have wide angle lenses and zoom lenses. Well, the Maya camera is very similar, and if I were to select this in middle mouse drag, I can do like a zoom. I can zoom in and out. Notice that the camera is not moving, but the focal length is. And there's a difference between focal length and actually moving the camera. Moving the camera will move through space, while a focal length will just change the frame image. So let me show you a couple things. If I want to make this scene look more dynamic and actually bigger than it actually is, give the illusion of a larger set, I'm going to change that focal length to say 20, which is going to give me a wide angle view here. Look that it pulls back, but if I select the camera and I move the camera in closer, notice how there's some distance created between these two characters here. Even though they're pretty close together in reality, let's just zoom in a little bit on them here. Let's just look at our scene here in the perspective view. They're really not that far, but if you look with the, if we look at the scene with the 20, which is kind of a wide angle lens, you'll notice that the characters and actually the whole environment looks a little bit larger and gives it some more dynamics. Oops, here. Let's just move that back. Okay. I'm even going to do a little bit more. So I'm going to go back here I'm going to set up a different kind of scene here. I'm going to make it 10. I'm just going to go a little crazy here, and if you start going too much with the low focal length, the wide angle, things are going to start to fisheye, as you can see here, and it's going to distort your frame, and you may not want that to do that too much. So a 10 is just maybe a little too much. I'm going to go to a 15. Actually, a 15 is a little too much as well. I tend to stay around 20 in the focal length, and it gives me a nice wide angle look without being too, without distorting the edge of frame, without fisheyeing the scene too much. So I'm going to kind of bring it back here, and then I'm going to grab my characters, and I'm going to move my characters a little closer here. And then make sure also, because if you widen out your lens, your background is going to sort of go off frame too, so you want to make sure that everything is seen. You can even play with your you can even adjust your ground plane a little bit here, and I'm putting a little bit of foreground element in here, maybe, oops, not that much, and let's just move it like that. Cool. And I just also want to make sure that my characters are on the ground and not sinking into the geometry. A little too much here. Let's bring him a little closer, like so. That's good. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm bringing him a little bit like that. And let's do a test render just to see what this looks like. And as you can see, this environment looks like it's going back into the distance, you know, a couple miles or so, or we want to give that impression. A wide angle lens will move the horizon more and make your objects look bigger, depending on the size of the lens that you make. You can also as well change some of the look of your scene if you were to. Let's just select the camera here. You know, having a low angle lens, I'm going to be looking up a little bit. That makes things look a bit more larger as well. I'm going to play around with this character here, having a little fun with this character, you know, and making sure that this character is grounded as well. Doesn't need to be perfect at this time. You can adjust all of those little details later, but what you're trying to do is rough in the scene. If you wanted to have, you know, a Dutch angle like that, being a little crazy, you can definitely do that. And if you wanted to keep it more straight, a little bit more conservative, you wanted to see a little bit more of the ground plane, you can move up like that. If you wanted to see more off into the distance, you can change your perspective. And let's also make sure that our background plane is proper, and let's do a little test render here. And you can see what this kind of effect this has as well. So these are just a few little tricks. There are many more things that you can do. I just did something very quick and rough and down and dirty just to do some broad strokes on my scene and to get the scene basically composed out, blocked out, and then you can start detailing it out and plussing it up from there. Thank you for watching.